Ladies and gentlemen, from the coastal shores of Mombasa to the hills of Nyeri.
Then we went to the western region, to Rift Valley, and now we bring debate back to its home, the metropolitan city of Nairobi.
This is the final debate of Season 9 as we seek to find out who will be the next champion and take the title of the Great Debater. I am your host, Chris Boru.
And I am Esperancia Kapanga. The determining motion in this final debate will be, gambling is harmful to society and should be banned.
In the proposition, we have the gentlemen from Kapsabet Boys High School, who are the defending champions for Season 8.
In the opposition, seeking to take this title, is the gentleman from Strathmore School. Proposal number 1, you have 3 minutes to make your statement.
George Washington says that gambling is the child of avarice, the brother of iniquity, and the father of mischief. And that is why Gogo Victor Simwa from Kapsabet High School is here to strongly propose this motion that states gambling is harmful to the society and should be banned. Well, what is gambling? Gambling is the activity of playing games of chance for money and of betting. When do we say that something is harmful? Well, something is harmful when it causes damage to somebody or the environment. The environment. Well, what is a society? A society is a particular community of people who share the same customs or laws. Customs or laws. Well, what is to ban? To ban is to decide or say officially that something is not allowed. Not allowed. Well, when we look at responsiblegambling.vic.com, gambling causes reduced concentration at work. Well, playing online poker during work time reduces productivity since most of the time is spent on gambling. A secretary has reports to write, is gambling. A typist has reports to type, is gambling. Somebody who is supposed to be counting money in the accounts office is gambling. It reduces the productivity of a farm. Well, it also increases the absence of these workers. Why? When people bet or gamble during lunch breaks, tea break, they tend to take extended breaks. This hence missing parts of or even whole working days. Well, according to the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder, a gambling disorder is a behavioral addiction which can result in psychological harm. Psychological harm. Well, this psychological harm presents a health and safety risk to employees, creating an obligation to the employers. Employers need profit. Employers need output, increased output. But instead of having increased output, they are obliged to deal with the problem of gambling by employees at the workplace. Let me end by agreeing with Mario Puzo, who says that, show me a gambler, and I will show you a loser. Grazie.
First proposer, you have 3 minutes to make your submission.
It's very funny how everywhere I go, there seem to be people who take things that are simple and blow them out of proportion. An example is I sit in front of the TV for 5 minutes and my mother comes, George, you've been there forever. Now, according to addictions.com, 3 to 5 adults who gamble out of every 100 get addicted. That's a meager 3.5%. So I don't know what kind of statistics we're talking about here, but clearly this is not a big issue. But there is a bigger issue associated with depriving people of the freedom to justly engage in activities such as gambling with restriction and with a conscious mindset that you're not wasting your family's money. people who quit gambling find themselves addicted to more harmful addictions, such as drugs, pornography, and all sorts of illicit things, which are way worse than gambling. And also the fact that such a small percentage of the population is actually addicted to gambling, and so few people take part in it on a daily basis, brings it down to the level of irrelevant. Now, what is gambling? I gamble on a day-to-day basis. I wager something of value on an event that's uncertain. I go to school, something of value. I gamble my precious time to go to school every single day on an event which is uncertain because I'm not sure if I'll wake up tomorrow. Are you going to ban that type of gambling? Now, antisocial behaviors are not brought about by gambling because according to debatewise.org, there's no proof that people don't care about others due to betting. Now, what's my point? The only issue with gambling here is excessive. Excess is always bad, but moderation is golden. According to SDG 12 on responsible consumption and production and SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth, people should be given leeway to engage in activities that are responsible and that help the growth of the community. How? Well, gambling is a huge contributor towards the growth of very many small communities, small people. An example, according to nation.co.ke, SportPesa, together with fans, bought kit and donated them to Nyamira, Queens. Now, these people would not have had kit to play with, but the gambling, they took the initiative to come out of themselves, of course based off the profits they're getting, and to contribute to society. So, is gambling bad? Is gambling good? Moderation. Moderation is key. And a story that's a bit personal. My uncle used to be addicted to gambling, but not the addiction that's the hard kind of addiction. He used to spend 2,000 shillings a week on horse racing. Now, what did that do to him? Nothing. What did that do to his family's income? Absolutely nothing. 2,000 shillings, according to what he was earning, was a fraction. But the pressure, the constant pressure, such as we are being told to accept today, to just rid gambling from society, what did he do to his mind? Of course, he eventually gave in because he loves his family. He stopped gambling, but that sort of addiction had to come out in another way, and he's been admitted in rehab for 2 years on heroin. I'd like us to ask ourselves, what's the bigger problem here? Thank you.
Second proposer, you have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
Now, the first opposer has intimated well that gambling with moderation is very beneficial. But just to prove to you how bad it is, how many of you here in this audience lost a bet last year? I'm seeing a hand there. Are you over 18? I interacted with you today, you're not over 18. It means that you're doing something illegal. So it means that it's detrimental to our society because illegalities are being meted out daily by our youth on the essence of just gambling. Another thing that we find to the detriment of ourselves here in gambling is that it is not lost on me that nowadays, even you go to youth, cybers, or just internet cafes for that matter, you'll find young men and women glued to the television screens, not television, but rather computer screens, and you think they're doing something important like maybe compiling a literature review, maybe updating their resumes or CV, but when you ask them keenly, they'll tell you that, I'm analyzing odds. I want to place a perfect bet, of which they're trying to go against the law of probability of mathematics that you cannot alter those numbers, hence placing them false hopes that they are going to win or maybe they're going to lose. A detriment to this one is the creditworthiness of youth in our nation is greatly hampered. Only recently, on April 1st, 2019, Dr. Matiang'i said that 500,000 youth in Kenya had been listed by CRB due to taking loans from these lending firms and putting it in gambling, and at the end, obviously, they lost. So that hampers the realization of SDG number 1 on no poverty, because these youth, they're not creditworthy, that they cannot get loans for future capital for very important matters. I do not also fail to note that this is an attempt of neo-colonization. Only recently, on July 2016, in 2019, this year, 3 weeks ago, the government was set to deport 17 directors of gambling companies out of the 28 that we have to crack down on borrowed culture of betting. You find that the Western countries, or the conceptual West, have been able to warp the minds of our youth to know that they can only survive by probability. Hence, they have controlled the mind of the youth, who are the next generation. Hence, they control the nation of the future. We also do not fail to note that it leads to misappropriation of school funds, this gambling. And all headlines on March 26, 2016 pointed to Moses Omwai of Maseno University, who lost 40,000 shillings worth of school fees to betting. And today, if you look at him, he's a school dropout. And he's not the only one. There are so many, meaning that the education and the SDG number 4 and its implementation is greatly hampered due to this, what we call gambling. It also leads to increased conmanship in our nation. You'll find that there are online scams of people who can do professional betting or predictions in betting for that matter, like one called Binti Futa in Telegram, who was able to con over 2,000 Kenyans, telling that if you pay me 5,000, I'll give you the sure odds for this one, meaning that many Kenyans were inconvenienced of the same. For us to mature as a society and live along this effect of gambling, I would like to tell you one proverb from my community that you cannot kill a cobra that is in a guard without breaking that guard. And for us to finish the negative effects of gambling, we just need to ban it. Thank you.
Second Maposa, you have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
Quite the gamble for me to be here with asthma and not have used my inhaler. Now, I really do feel bad for Moses. However, I think Moses is a man who can make his own decisions. And if Moses really did lose the 40,000, then I think Moses just needs to get better. I think that we all know that in any game, there is a winner and there is a loser. And when it comes to gambling, someone has to make the profit. The money doesn't just disappear. Let's look at Betway, a popular form of betting that many people engage in. How many of you were aware that they donated $1 million to Red Cross? We really do take these gambling associations for granted because the money they get isn't necessarily evil money. I really do hate this association with evil because as much as it's harmful, I don't think we would go as far as banning it. For example, let's look at surgeries. Everyone knows that sometimes you might be extremely sick and you need a surgery that might kill you. You might die, but you want to live. You're gambling with your life. Do we ban people from making their own decisions? What kind of world is this? We can't tell adult men and women just because you have a salary doesn't mean you're allowed to use it for what you want. When you earn your money, it is yours. And if you would like to gamble it, that is your choice. I don't think anyone has the right to take this away from us. Now, a study by The Guardian carried out in the UK in 2016 basically focused on young children, and it asked them how many of them had parents who gambled, and a staggering 64% of them said their parents gambled. Now, this sounds quite depressing, but when you ask them what their relationship with their parents were, only 4% said that it was bad. It's clear that gambling doesn't really have as many bad effects as these people are trying to lump onto it. And I think that if a secretary is playing online poker, well, I hope she's good because soon she won't need that job. She can easily earn money quite quickly and leave. I don't think that we should demonize something that's so common in our society. Now, Karl Marx was a social analyst and an economist, and he said, while money is an instrument that breeds disorder in society, gambling is one of the few ways to earn money quickly. Now, if someone as great as that, with such a great understanding of money, could take the side that gambling should be allowed, then I think it's a bit ridiculous for us to try and take away people's freedom to do what they want with their money. Their money isn't harming anyone. They're not necessarily funneling their money into any harmful activities. This is completely different from, for example, funneling your money into a brothel. No one's getting harmed. All you're doing is putting your money on the table and saying, I understand the risk I am placing myself in. Therefore, should I lose this money, I'm to be held responsible. Isn't it quite strange that we're going to have a society filled with people who aren't even allowed to put their money on the table? What was the point then? Why would you go through all these years of school, earn a salary, and then be told you can't use it? Because I think that for once we have a motion that has tackled SDG 1 through 4. If there's a single father who is looking to, well, save his family, and perhaps his parents have left him a small inheritance, that inheritance might not be enough for him to start a business. Why should we stop him from evading, or rather supporting, SDG 1, no poverty, SDG 2, zero hunger, SDG 3, good health and well-being, and SDG 4, quality education? Why should we stop him from gambling? Perhaps he will win, and if he doesn't, is it really the gambling's fault? Who is to blame here? I think we need to look deeply at who is to blame here, and I don't think gambling is the scapegoat you'd like to think it is. My name is Mark Itaka, and I don't think gambling should be banned despite it being harmful.
proposers have been asked, if we look at gambling as a skill-based activity and not a chance-based activity, are they still advocating for it to be banned, or can we still have it continuing? For the opposers, they've been asked, how do we deal with the effects of gambling on society if we do not ban it? Third proposer, you have 3 minutes to respond.
Thank you for that question. But as an African, I would answer your question with another question. Please do tell us the skills that you need to win a bet in a gambling situation. An example, sport person. As much as you say that it is skill-based, isn't it still harmful to the society as the effects that have been mentioned by my fellow speakers? Which is more important? Gambling, the skills, or the society? Let us put this into realization. My first point, gambling leads to increase in suicide rates. It has been a case that we've had more than once or twice that a certain person has committed suicide due to inability of paying a debt that he or she has lost. 2016, we had a case of a university student who hanged himself after losing $790 upon placing the debt. Moments after that, we still have 5 more cases of suicide, 5 more cases of bankruptcy, 5 more cases of domestic violence. Do you really think this is doing justice to our youth? No, that is why we advocate for the banishment of gambling. That information has been backed up by a Swedish investigation that proves that 550 of the suicides that happen each year are contributed to gambling. That is according to gambleaware.com. Do you really see the essence of having this gambling when it is driving us to a future that is blank and bleak? We all end up having to lose something. In this case, we have our youth having to lose their lives. They lay down their lives because of these factors that are affecting our youth every day. Do you really think that is justice? No, that is not justice at all. Broken families. Conflicts arise among a number of families and family members when you have a situation whereby one of the family members is gambling and hence some of the money is being squandered into gambling, whereas the money could have been used in doing other things. We have cases in our country where children are sent home for school fees. I cannot say that all of this is due to gambling, but I can assure you that something of the case has happened. Even though it might not be full, I can assure you it is there. Why? Because you can find a scenario where a parent has placed a debt and ends up losing the money which should have been used for other means and purposes. So, people are also taking loans and draining finances into gambling, supporting what the second speaker just said. So, if we continue doing this, don't you think that we are actually draining our society, that we are actually driving towards a future that is filled with mishaps and difficulties? Thank you.
You have 3 minutes to respond to your question.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Victory Wayaki, and I've been asked a question on how to manage gambling without banning it. Well, the key to anything is education, and honestly, as some gambling companies have done in the recent past, educating the masses on the effects of gambling, on the dangers of gambling, will go a long way to mitigate the negative effects that are experienced from it. Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to say I am a gambler myself. You see, I am one of the 3 million Kenyans who suffer from diabetes, and every morning I have to I have to inject myself with insulin. Now, there's a chance, however small, that I could kill myself with that shot of insulin. You see, if I perform the injection and I don't eat after that, or I eat too little sugar after that, I could go into hypoglycemia and die. Should we ban that gambling? Should I stop taking insulin so that I don't suffer the odd misfortune of an overdose on insulin. That would be foolhardy, and that would be wrong. Now, we've been told that in the DSM-5, according to the American Psychiatric Association, gambling causes psychological harm. What is this harm that it causes? It causes regret. Regret at losses made, or regret at not placing a bet that you knew you should have. That sounds a lot to school like me. I mean, that sounds a lot like school to me, sorry. I regret not reading better in Form 1 and Form 2, because in the past mocks that I've just done, I could have done a lot better. Gambling also causes feelings of failure. I guess failure at losses made, or even the failure to kick a bad habit. It causes worthlessness too, or feelings of worthlessness, due to this inability to shake a habit that you know is bad. But you know what that sounds like to me? That sounds like alcohol addiction. We know a lot more alcoholics than we do people who suffer from a gambling addiction. Why haven't we banned alcohol? It's harmful. It causes liver cirrhosis and various cancers, but we just can't seem to ban it. In addition, nicotine addictions are very serious. Why can't we ban those? Why can't we ban cigarettes either? You see, gambling is such a convenient scapegoat because, one, we don't understand much of it. As some people have said, it's a fairly foreign concept to us, and which is why education is key. If we come to understand this monster, then we'll know how to tame it. I was in an Uber the last week, and I looked at my driver, and he was on his phone. And I was wondering, what on earth is a driver doing on his phone in the middle of traffic? And shock on me, I saw him on the Sport Pesa app, and I was worried. But you know what? I'd rather that man be gambling with his money than gambling with my life by driving while drunk or experiencing a head rush from cigarettes. Thank you.
Proposers, you have 1 minute to make a final submission.
Forgive me for looking like a polygamist, but my brother-in-law, once more. You've talked about insulin, but if gambling is the insulin for treating poverty, then that research for medicine is downright wrong. Why do I say so? It is because you're trying to legitimize things which you know in a sense they're wrong. One of you told us about channeling money to brothels, or even about the secretary thing. I don't know how many secretaries have been able to leave their formal jobs because of winning Sport Pesa. We are yet to find out. But we are going to see a progression when Dr. Matiang'i continues whatever he's doing. The licenses of some companies have been revoked. And I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen a ray of hope for Kenya. Because the day in which gambling will be banned will be like, in a manner of speaking, our day of Pentecost. And the Holy Spirit will descend on us as the Kenyan youth and will start speaking in tongues. The idle ones in front of computers will start speaking the language of being busy, doing something important instead of lying on chance. Or the people who are criminals because of looking for capital for gambling will also start speaking the language of morality and working hard to get things by their own sweat. Otherwise, the frying of a goat does not prevent it from being sold in a market. So telling us about the good effects of gambling makes it still bad. Thank you.
Opposers, you have 1 minute to make a final submission.
Now, there seems to be a lot of talk of this fictional secretary. However, given that I'm not the one who brought it up, I think that if they didn't find research on her, that's a failure on their part. So we're going to start by saying that gambling can be controlled by putting in place restrictions. For example, you can only gamble if you're above 18 or if you're above a certain pay grade. I really don't think that we're going to take gambling and demonize it just because we don't understand it. Gambling has been a part of us for a long time. If you read the Bible like we do, you can see that people cast lots for Jesus' clothes after he was crucified. Gambling has been around for a long time, and that secretary could definitely have, well, we don't know if she did, but given that Sports Pesa pays $80 billion to their winners, I think that she wouldn't need to work a single day of her life after that. And whether the money was wasted afterward, that was up to her, and that's not gambling's fault. Let's look at other activities which are dangerous. Let's take dancing. When people are performing, they often get injuries, yet they keep dancing until the show is over. Dancing is a dangerous activity. Me speaking is a dangerous activity. Maybe I'll choke on some spit and die. Does that mean we should ban talking? I think we should stop looking for things to ban and realize that we live in a free society, and if gambling is really such a problem, all we need are restrictions. Let's not demonize things, people. Please agree with me. Thank you.
I am really, really proud of the 6 of you on stage. And I sit here and I'm excited about just looking at the next generation of leaders and the fact that you can articulate motions very well. You know, when I look at some of those in leadership positions and the fact that they're not even able to articulate their positions, I can't wait for a day when I'll be sitting back and watching you guys take up different roles in this country and in the world, because, you know, the world is your stage. So you've done very, very well. You are, you know, as a panel of judges, this was a very difficult decision to make, but, you know, there has to be a winner. And it doesn't mean that the team that doesn't carry the flag is any less of a team. And so congratulations to the 6 of you. You have done your counties proud, you've done your schools proud, you have done us very proud, and it's just exciting to know that there's a generation that's coming up that's going to make a difference. If this is what you are now, I can only imagine what's going to look like in the next couple of years. Congratulations.
Well, I don't have much to say. I think this is the first time in all these debates that I've written nothing. So I sat down to be educated. And I must say I'm still torn whether we should ban it or not. And that tells me this was a good debate. So I want to really appreciate the journey that you've made. Whoever wins, just know that you need to appreciate the other team big time. They're a formidable force. All right? Just be open for surprises. Sometimes it's very easy to think that you're a winner simply because maybe the crowd flows with you. But things happen. All the best.